welcome back to the prep course. Today in our class we're going to be talking a little bit about the U.S. college applications process. So our objectives today are to understand that applications process, the timeline of events for that process, all of the different components of the applications process, as well as a little bit about how colleges are going to be interpreting your application. So first, it's important to note that the focus of our course is preparation for the U.S. college applications process. However, if you are prepared for that process and all of the skills and the abilities that you're going to learn in this course and in your preparation will also help you with application processes for universities in other countries that have a holistic evaluation process similar to the United States. And we're also going to be providing you with specific information about the applications process for schools in the United Kingdom. So I've already used the word application several times, but what is the application? The application is all of the documents, forms, test scores, and essays that you're going to submit in order to compete for admission to a university in the United States. And your application is going to, in general, document your entire academic, extracurricular, and personal history and trajectory over the course of exclusively high school. So let's talk a little bit about the application timeline. So the application timeline is going to begin in your second year of high school or during the beginning of your third year of high school. So at that time, you want to begin researching schools, understanding the admissions process, and also taking admissions tests if possible. In August of your third year of high school is when you're going to begin most of your applications. Also in August, you want to inform your school that you will be completing the admissions process. You want to request your transcript, which is your histórico escolar from your school, and also letters of recommendation. October, November, December, and January of your senior year, you can finish up any admissions tests that you still need to take, including the SAT or ACT, SAT subject tests, and TOEFL or IELTS exams. We'll speak in more detail about those in the next few minutes. Also in October or November of your senior year, generally November 1st, are the early admissions deadlines. So early admissions deadlines are many colleges and universities allow students to submit their applications at an earlier date to receive a decision at an earlier date as well. We will talk more about early admissions in our handouts. In December of your third year of high school, if you did the early admissions process, you will already receive admissions decisions from some universities in December of that year. But for most universities, you will be required to submit your application materials during the regular admissions deadlines, which are from December to February. In March and April of the year after you've submitted your applications, you will receive your regular admissions notifications. So the universities will tell you whether or not you have been admitted. On May 1st, you will be responsible for notifying the college or university of your choice that you will attend. And May through August, you can begin the visa application process so that you can have the correct visa to study at a university in the United States. And in August and September of the year after you began the whole admissions process, the school year will begin in the United States. So before going into detail about all the different components of the application process, it's important that we talk a little bit about what colleges evaluate. So in general, colleges are going to be evaluating applicants to see whether or not they have English fluency. So if you can speak English at the level necessary to be able to keep up with university level classes. They want to know about your academic performance, so that includes your grades in school, and also your academic potential. So what do you have the potential to do in the future, and also what do you have the potential to contribute academically at that school in particular. In addition, they want to look at your standardized test scores. They want to see if you're involved in different extracurricular activities, how long you've been involved, and in what way. And they also want to look at your teacher and counselor recommendations. What do representatives of your high school have to say about you? And also, they're interested in other subjective criteria like fit with that university's specific culture or environment. So different schools are going to put different weight on each of these components. And we're going to now start by going into detail about what the components of the application are. So let's go over to the whiteboard. So now we're going to begin by talking a bit more about the specific components of the U.S. college application. So it's important to note as well that different colleges and universities have different policies and deadlines when it comes to all of these things. So what we're talking about here is a general overview of what you can expect to submit. So let's start. First, you're going to have to fill out application forms. So those are forms that are going to be talking about all of those things we just discussed are of interest to college: your personal history, your academic history, and your extracurricular history. And so many of the most competitive colleges and universities in the United States use what is called the Common Application. So the Common Application is an online system in which you can fill out one set of forms and send all of those forms to all of the colleges that you're interested in applying to. So 500 universities and colleges in the United States use the Common App. However, there are a few other universities, some of the best known include MIT and Berkeley, that have their own unique online college application system, and very few universities may ask that you submit a paper application. However, if you understand all of the steps for filling out the Common App, that will help you to fill out any other applications that you may also have to submit. So we're going to have specific classes on understanding how to fill out the Common App and revising your application once you're done. So the next component of the typical application are test scores. So what are those test scores? Many of you have probably already heard a lot about tests like the SAT. So there are three main groups of tests that you may be required to submit on your college application. So those are the SAT or the ACT. We'll have more details about all of these tests over the course of the prep course. But those two tests are going to measure your reading, math, writing skills, and in the case of the ACT, they'll also test your science reasoning skills and any knowledge that you would acquire as part of a rigorous high school curriculum. So they basically want to see if you have a general baseline of knowledge. In addition to that, you may be required to submit your scores for the SAT-2 or SAT subject tests. So what those are tests testing your knowledge in certain areas: languages, humanities, exact sciences, also biology, and there's 20 tests offered that you can choose from. And the final group of tests that you may be required to submit are English proficiency evaluations. So those would be either the TOEFL test or the IELTS test. And so basically those tests want to measure your ability to use and understand English in an academic setting. So you're going to be submitting your scores most likely from all three of those types of tests. So a couple of notes about standardized tests. First, standardized tests, the SAT in particular, is not a vestibular. It's not an admissions exam. It's one part, it's one component of an entire application that you're going to be submitting. So those tests really allow schools to have some kind of benchmark. First, to understand, particularly with an international student, they don't know about Brazilian schools with as much detail as they know about American schools. So they want to understand if you have the baseline of knowledge that you're going to need to be able to keep up at the college level. In addition to that, they need to know what your scores are on those tests so that they can compare you to students from very different contexts. So here in Brazil, for example, a student who gets all 10s on their Histórico Escolar could know just as much as a student who at a more difficult school gets all 7s. So the SAT is going to help the colleges to compare the amount of knowledge that those two different students have. So it's very important for you to dedicate sufficient time to preparing for those tests to get the highest score that you can possibly get. However, if you don't achieve the score, the highest score ever, the score that you want necessarily, it's just one component of your overall application. So you can make an effort to have stronger other parts of your application that will compensate for a score that's not as high as you were imagining. So one exception to that is the English test. You do need to prove on your application somewhere that you have sufficient English to keep up in an academic environment at a university where English is the language that's spoken. If you're unable to prove that, either through a test or in some other way, unfortunately a university isn't going to be able to feel comfortable admitting you. And so just talk a couple more points about the SAT. What is a good score? I know you're probably hearing a lot of different things about the score that you want to achieve. What is the best score? The answer is, it depends on the university that you're going to apply to. So we're going to teach you in future classes about how to find the median scores of SATs of admitted students at different universities. But it's a good idea for you to do your research so you can understand a good score that you want to achieve for the university that you hope to attend. And finally, please note that international students will often have lower scores on the reading and writing sections of the SAT, obviously because you won't necessarily be a native English speaker. Universities want to see that you have a higher math score overall because generally that's going to show, that shows more about your intellectual abilities than your score on the reading and writing because you're not a native speaker. All right, so the next component of the application is going to be essays. So what are college essays? One of the toughest parts of the application process, in my opinion, but also one of the most important. So you're going to be required to write several essays that are going to tell your personal story and your personal trajectory to a university. So essays are really your chance to shine. They're your chance to show a university what else you have other than scores on a test, grades, and your resume, and they're your opportunity to show that university who you are as a person and why you would be a great fit. The prompts have changed this year. We'll talk more about essays in our 3 classes on essays, but here's just a quick example of what a prompt is that you might find for the personal statement. So one example is, reflect on a time when you challenged a belief or idea. What prompted you to act? And would you make that same decision again? So these are very subjective essay prompts, but they're going to allow you to show a university a lot about who you are. In addition, you may be required to write other essays. So a lot of universities will request that you write an essay that's in which you talk about why you're a good fit for that university. Why do you want to study there? Other universities will request that you write other longer essays with a prompt that's something specific that university is interested in finding out about you. You may also have to write short answers, short responses to brief questions. So there will be a lot of writing involved in your application process, that's for sure. And as I said, we'll talk more about all of these essays in our 3 classes on essay writing and also revision. So the next component that you will definitely have to submit with your college applications is your high school transcript. So your high school transcript is your histórico escolar do ensino médio. It's your grades over the course of all of high school, and those grades are very important. Colleges in general want to see that you have a high level of academic excellence, a strong academic performance over the course of high school, but they also want to see that you show progress. So for example, in the first year of high school, maybe your grades weren't as strong. If you're able to improve those grades in the second year of high school, colleges are going to look very well upon that. However, you don't want your grades to be decreasing over the course of high school. In addition to the high school transcript, you're going to be submitting letters of recommendation. So what are letters of recommendation? These are going to be 2 letters typically from teachers at your school in different subject areas, and 1 letter from a representative of the administration who are going to be able to talk about you as a person, but also about how you are in the school environment and what you're like in the classroom. So do you go to class excited to learn? Are you always helping other students? Is the teacher excited for you to come to the class every day? So these are going to be letters. You want to choose the person that writes your letter very carefully, because you want somebody who's going to be able to comment well about your performance in school, but also someone that knows you very well and someone that can talk about your potential for achieving things in the future. Universities want to hear from your teachers your potential for academic development in the future as well as in the past. And a final component that you may have for the applications process is an interview. Not all universities require that students participate in interviews, but for those that do, you may have the opportunity to be interviewed by an alumni, an ex-alumno of the university that you're applying to, or a representative of admissions who's going to ask you questions about, your hopes and dreams, your personal trajectory, things that you've accomplished in the past, and that person who already knows the university very well will be able to evaluate your fit with that university. And I also think the interview is a very great experience for you to talk to somebody who knows everything about that university and ask any questions that you can think of about what life will be like in that environment. And so, as we said before, each college has a different process, but these are the components that most colleges are going to ask that students submit with their applications. So just a couple of final thoughts to conclude our class for today. We've discussed all of the different components of the application and also how universities are going to be interpreting those different components and what the things are that are important to them when they read your application. So, fluency in English, high grades, all those sorts of things. So if you are weak in one of those areas that we described, and you still have time to dedicate yourself to improving in those areas. So, are you not 100% fluent in English? You should practice speaking with friends, sign up for a free online course. We'll be providing you with information about some good online courses. Enroll in a cursinho if that's possible. Read books in English, watch series in English without subtitles and movies. There are still things that you can do to continue to improve your English. And even if you think that your English is fluent, you should still be continuing to do all of these things because they will help you in your application. So, are your grades low in some subjects? As we said, Progress is important to colleges and universities. So even if your grades may be low in some subjects now, if you dedicate yourself to improving those grades and are able to show an improvement, that's going to look great from the perspective of a college. Are you not so involved outside of the classroom? Are you not that involved in extracurricular activities? Well, get involved in a new activity. Or you can deepen your engagement in an activity that you currently participate in. So dedicate more hours, run for a leadership position, or even create a new project if at all possible. And are you worried about your SAT score? So if you're worried about your SAT score, it's important to create a study plan, dedicate yourself to practicing, understand what are going to be the more challenging elements of the test, the SAT and any other standardized test, understand what's going to be the hardest part for you, and dedicate time to working specifically on those challenges so that you can improve your score overall. So thank you so much. That was general information about the college applications process. We'll have some more detailed information for you in our course handouts. Thanks so much.